there is a call for action to outlaw discrimination on the basis of one's physical, mental, or sensory impairment for, with, and by persons with disabilities. My name is Bukky Towuru, your regular host on this week's edition of Perspective, and the last for the year 2023. What a show! This week's edition of the program, my guests will be sharing perspectives on advancing post-moratorium agenda of the Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Act of 2018. And this outing is sponsored by Joint National Association of Persons with Disabilities, JONAPWAD, in partnership with the Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room, NCSSR, with support from Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO. The Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Act, outlaws signed into law in January 2019, sets up a National Commission for Persons with Disabilities to oversee the inclusivity of persons with disabilities in society and uplift their well-being. While the Act provides a 5-year transitory period from its enactment to enable modification of public structures, services to meet the peculiar needs of persons with disabilities, other provisions are intended for immediate implementation. So as the Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities is gradually entering end of the moratorium period, to what extent has the provisions in the Act of 2018 been upheld and promoted, and how can all citizens be adequately informed about the Act, and how can the narrative be changed? Mrs. Uche Andrew, Disability Inclusion Officer from Joint National Association of Persons with Disabilities, is here with me in the studio and will be speaking through an interpreter, Abdulkadir Issa. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. Hope you're good this morning.
Yeah, we are good. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you. And so joining also in the conversation, Miss Obichi Amaka. Her skin is awesome. You need to check it out. And she's the Disability Inclusion Trainee, Joint National Association of Persons with Disabilities. Good morning. Also,
good morning.
Thank you for joining us. You need to speak out so that people also can hear you.
Okay, good morning, and thank you for having us this morning.
Beautiful. So let's find out. We'll need to break it down for the people because this conversation is about the people understanding the amendments that needs to be made and for everybody to be part of this project. So what are the key provisions of the Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Act of 2018?
Thank you very much for that beautiful question. The key provisions in the Disability Act, every aspect of it is very important, but we'll be talking about the key provisions that are very, very vital to persons with disability. Number one about it is accessibility. Accessibility in the terms of every structural building, every area of every structures are well accessible to people with disability, whether you are a physically disabled person or deaf or visually impaired or whatever. Let every infrastructure be accessible to persons with disability, like having a ramp in the building, having sign language interpreters in offices or places where people with disability often go to. So this way, you are making it inclusive for all persons with disability. And education, as it is said in the Nigerian policy education, that every Nigerian is entitled to equal education, so which is also part of the Disability Act. It therefore states that every person with disability is entitled to free and equal accessible education. And the educational institution should be something that is accessible to people with disability, not in a situation where schools will be situated in an area that people with disability cannot get to or cannot afford to go. So it should be accessible to all categories of persons with disability, accessible to people that are deaf by making sure that every teacher of a deaf child is well acquainted with the mode of communication, which is sign language communication mode. And for the blind, all the learning materials should be in braille format so that people with blind can be able to read and interpret what is in the textbook. And for those who are wheelchair bound, the school environment, the school building should be on level ground so that there will be no need of lifting people with disability from one floor to the other where the buildings are on-story buildings. So with education, we also have transportation issue. Many of our vehicle transport system don't have accessible transportation scheme for people with disability, in the sense that people with a wheelchair band, they cannot access the bus because it doesn't have any easy movement, any easy access to enter. They have to lift the wheelchair before they can be able to get entrance into the vehicle. And also for those who are blind, who are deaf, there is nothing to display their point of destination or the route that the vehicle will fly to be able to get them know that this is where they are going to avoid entering a wrong vehicle. So all these things are what is required, and what that is one of the key provisions that is required in the Disability Act. And also we have the issue of transport also that fall within the aviation sector. Many of our persons with disabilities are not able to access air transport because of inaccessible structures there. So sometimes person who is deaf, the aviation officers will bring wheelchair for you to use. While you can walk, the only problem is communication. So most of them don't have that communication skill to be able to interact with the deaf people. So all these things are very, very vital. They are the key areas of need for government to take into consideration. And another key provision is this 5 years, 5 year transitional period for this Disability Act, which is happening from January this year.
Next year.
So how far have the government gone in seeing that inclusion is truly achieved? This will be happening from this year. And what it means is that every structure, every organization, every agency, whether MDAs that are not in compliance with the provision of the Act will be fined according to the content of the Disability Act.
I love that.
Thank you.
I love that. They said they will be fine. But if from what you said now, there is so much to be done. And it's obvious the society has actually left behind the people with disabilities. Very obvious. You want to look at the schools? How many schools do we have? Most of them are on floors. So are we saying that those schools now are going to have another building for the people who can access the chairs? Or are we talking about transportation? Is it health? Is it in the place of office? It's actually a lot to do. But let me ask Miss Obi Chiamaka, from all of this that she's highlighted, how much have you seen being implemented thus far?
Okay, from my colleague's point, although they have been setting and already recorded, will I say, successes and improvement in the Act, the Disability Act, is stated even if there is an existing building or means of transportation, there is a 5 year moratorium period for modifications. After this 5 year year of moratorium period, and there is no modification, such companies or even the organizations are liable to fines or even jail terms as the need may be. So for so far, we can look at and see some public buildings with already existing modifications. There are so many public buildings, or a few of them with accessible ramps, same as braille writings in some of the lifts in public buildings, as well as government organizations. And you can also see some level of inclusion in government agencies, some of the government agencies actually, and the private sector as well. So a lot is already in process, as though we are still expecting more to be done.
But while this law was in place, what form of um, education to the public was given? Let me share from your perspective. How much of education went through for the people to understand this is starting 2019, 2024, it's going to happen. And what was the campaign all through this period for people to make sure that they comply with this?
Okay, so far there has been so many awareness programs. There have been information out there, and we all know that ignorance of the law is not acceptable even in the sight of the law. The act is accessible to everybody so long you have a smartphone. Even if you don't have a smartphone, there has been radio jingles, there has been programs, there have been events, there have been capacity buildings that have been ongoing to push forward advocacy for the rights of persons with disabilities. So I would say that they've gone a long way in pushing advocacy programs so far.
I would love to see more of it. That was why I asked the question. Because the people need to get along. I understand the excuse of the law, and ignorance does not permit you to, to violate the law. But at the same time, we're looking at the aims and objectives of these to be achieved, which will be best for enlightenment to come on. So while all these are going, what are the challenges that have been faced that you see or know in implementing the law in Nigeria? The challenges, yes,
Okay.
Madam.
Even with the recorded successes, which most of us know that there have been establishment of the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities. There have also been establishment of the Disability Implementation and Monitoring Commission and Committee, as well as there have been a level of inclusion even in the government. But with all these successes, there is still a lack from the National Commission of Persons with Disabilities. There have been the issue of low funding, and this has affected the initial plans. And also, there is a little or limited data to the situation of persons with disabilities, even in the country. For this limited data, if there's no record, there is no specific number of achievements or even the number of persons with disabilities to be reached, there will be no monitoring or even evaluation. So this has limited even the monitoring and evaluation of
So those
progress.
statistics are non-existent.
Yes, there is no specific statistics for persons with disabilities. If we're even looking at the local level, there is a limited access, both infrastructure, both enterprises, both what's it called, both even the laws down to the rural areas, how many people are aware of it? So although there is awareness, it's still not widespread. It's still not versatile. It's still not everywhere. And a lot is also being put in place to consider all these limitations as well.
The station is Capital FM 92, and the program is Perspectives. My guest this morning, Mrs. Uche Andrew, Disability Inclusion Officer, Joint National Association of Persons with Disabilities, is joined by Ms. Obi Chiamaka, Disability Inclusion Training of the same association. They're speaking to the reason why everybody must get on board in advancing the Post-Moratorium agenda of the Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Act of 2018, which simply says a 5-year transitory period is given to enable modification of public structures, services to meet the peculiar needs of persons with disabilities. My guest talked about transportation, schools, and also other provisions that are intended for immediate implementation. I'm very sure when you mentioned the issue about the fine, I'm eagerly looking forward for it to be implemented for any office or building or school, because sometimes that is what Nigerians understand. You go the hard way. So what are you going to be doing come next year January to ensure that these things are implemented? Let's hear Mrs. Uche.
Thank you very much. We, as the disabled, as the right holders on issues that pertain to people with disability, what we will be doing basically is to ensure that the implementation of the disability content are very well carried out. And that is reporting every structure reporting every MDA that are not in compliance, are not complying with the provision of the Act.
When you say reporting, you're going to be reporting to, and who is actually going to go around to carry out that surveillance, and who are they reporting to?
We have the Enforcement and Compliance Committee
Awesome.
of the National Commission of Persons with Disability. They are in charge of ensuring that every structure that does not comply with the Disability Act is being prosecuted. So they are the government arm that will execute the law. So they are the one that will be reporting to, and we too will carry out our own evaluation to ensure that the right thing is done on the right as the right holders. So what other things that we'll be doing is to also push and carry out more advocacy outreach, because it is one of the content of the United Nations Convention of the Right of Persons with Disability, Article 6, Article 8, which speaks about awareness raising. But like my colleague said, a lot of awareness has been raised, but yet we are seeing some gap, and those gaps are coming in from the area of attitude of the citizens. People are different, so there are different way people respond to issues, and most is on attitude. So if the attitude of people that are responsible can be changed to adopt what is necessary, I think issue of inclusion will be a little bit better than what it is.
Attitude is 100% in everything that you're doing in life. So, what are some of the attitudes that you have seen in people that you would want them to checkmate?
The attitude is attitude of stereotyping, attitude of looking down on people with disability. That is a feeling that people with disability, what can they offer? Like myself, if I am walking on the road, you may not know that I am a person with deafness until when you speak with me. So a situation where I bring in my interpreter to interpret and bridge the communication gap, there may be, why is this person bringing interpreter? What do we even need this person for? So that kind of attitude abound. So what we need is a change of mindset towards people with disability. And where these things don't happen, we see those people with that attitude as those who have another kind of disability are often called disability mindset. So that is what we are talking about. If they can change their attitude and see that people with disability are equal in every area of human life, we can do when barriers are removed. We can contribute. We can do anything. We can contribute to the national economic growth if all the barriers that limit us from performing optimally are removed.
I'm particularly interested in people who give an attitude when they discover this person is deaf. If it is me, I will do back to you in sign language, this is me, leave it or take it. So will the disability people to take that approach just to enforce themselves into that space? Is this something you will probably recommend?
Not particularly to me, but to all persons
Yes,
with
yes,
disability.
I know, yes.
I want to give an instance again of what I've experienced. In the tertiary institution, people always feel that it is only what they see that they believe on. How do I mean? When I came to the school as a deaf person, I asked for accommodation as a person with disability. I was denied accommodation because they feel that I am not truly a person with disability just because I can speak.
Okay.
So other people who have physical disability that are seen, they were easily given accommodation, and I was denied all through I completed my tertiary education. So that is what we are talking about. Disability, some disability are hidden. Once you notice it, spread it and let people with disability be carried along. It can happen to anybody, anytime, anywhere, any day. So the thing is, let our attitude towards people with disability be a positive one, so that anything we are doing, it will be bringing positive result to us.
Let me ask Miss Amaka, what role can the media play in advocating for the rights of people with disabilities in Nigeria? I am particularly interested in this and I want to be on board with it as well.
Okay, from the Act, you can actually see that a section of the Act, which is Section 2, speaks directly to the media through the Federal Ministry of Information. At this point, we will understand that the media plays a very huge role in awareness creation. Most people, no matter the media outlet, everybody is actually relying on the media so much for to pass information. And by so doing, the level of awareness can actually go higher. And if you check, the act pointed at the Ministry of Information making sure there is provision for promotion of awareness for persons with disability, the rights, the duties, and obligations of persons with disabilities, as well as their contribution to the society. If the media can create a space for talk shows like this to educate the public, let the public know that I am first a human before my disability. Disability does not look at your age, it does not look at your height, does not even look at your skin color before coming to you. It can happen to anybody. And the awareness here is that Nigerians have this mentality that disability is personal tragedy. But with the help of the media, they push for advocacy and awareness building through every media outlet, organizing talk shows, even teaching the public as little as the right terminology to address persons with disabilities will go a long way. And trust me, the implementation will look very easy if there is so much out there known to people. If even as little as a market woman understands that I'm a person with disability does not mean me buying from you can transfer my disability to you. Disability is not transmittable. You can't contact it. It can happen to you. But if even the last or the poorest man understands that disability can happen to you and me at any point in time, and if the media keep pushing this right let's say perspective about persons with disabilities, making the public understand that yes, there's this thing that persons with disability are aggressive, but no, everybody is human. It's your manner of approach that will determine the response you get from me. So at the end of the day, I feel the media has a very huge role, and that is why the act specifically speaks to the Ministry of Information to actually push and promote awareness.
So, how much of this synergy is going on with from the Ministry of Information?
And so far, we can this is an example. You can see that yes, this program has been on for 2 years and is still counting. And if we keep up with this, not just Capital FM, if every radio outlet, every television station, every newspaper, even social media do more and actually pick from this, there's a lot that will be achieved.
But I'm looking at it. If it's not paid for, will any media take up the campaign?
That is where I said that even with all our success stories, there's still limitation, which funding is our number one. Since there is no fund and there is no support, nothing in Nigeria is free. So since there is no funding, I would say yes. So many people can actually still pick it upon themselves without waiting for the organization to fund or even the civil societies. You can pick it, you can do it yourself, knowing that it can happen to you or even your neighbor at any point in time. You don't have to wait for government. You don't have to wait to be told that okay, this you're doing to a person with disability is not right. As long as you've read and you want, even if you don't read the law, as long as you've come across awareness programs and you've understood even as little as okay, I can't call this person, oh, you are a disabled person. No, you're a person with disability. I can't tell you because you're a person with disability, please you cannot enter here because there's no ramp for you. Or you can also help the person advocate that such events cannot hold because there's no ramp for my neighbor or for my friend who is a person with disability. That's push for advocacy. We don't have to wait for funding.
So, and the civil society organizations, let me come back to Mrs. Uche. What do you think the civil society organizations can do in advancing the post-moratorium?
What CSO can do is to work in partnership, in collaboration with the organizations of persons with disability to ensure that every area of their need every area of their specific need, because we have different clusters of people with disability. We have the blind, the deaf, the physically challenged, and those who are affected by leprosy. So if CSO work and collaborate with different clusters of people with disability, then you can hear directly from the grassroots what are their needs and what are the best approach in addressing all these needs. And this cannot be done without inclusion of the media. I am coming back to the media. Media have a lot of role to play in seeing that issues about people with disability is well disseminated. And like you mentioned, without fund, we can do better than what we are doing now. So this is where there is serious and urgent need for government to allocate more budgetary funds for issues about people with disability, so that we can truly achieve that SDG goal that says nothing about us without us.
Capital FM is going to be working with you. We want to assure you that moving forward in 2024, you won't have to find us.
Thank you very much.
Well, it's been a lovely conversation. I will say thank you to Mrs. Uche Andrew, Disability Inclusion Officer, and Miss Obi Chiamaka, Disability Inclusion Training, both of the Joint National Association of Persons with Disabilities, JUNAPWAD. Abdulkadir Ilsa, Michael Ogedengbe, thank you so much. Love your presence in the studio. And also to my multimedia guru, Victoria Ganji, thank you so much. Benson Adiola facilitating this program. You're up. My name is Bukky Towuru. Stay intact. We'll join our network service for the next program. Stay with us.